Hey guys, I just finished putting the transmission back in my E39 here. Had it out to replace the torque converter for a P0741 code. Uh, Read a lot of different things on how to go about fixing this. What I ended up doing was I got a torque converter from eBay, Star Parts I believe. They said it would take a couple weeks to get here. I got it in like 3 days. And just ordered some exhaust gaskets and a few other little pieces to put this thing back together. So there's a lot of controversy on whether or not you should change your transmission oil on a car with 140,000 miles on it. So every time in the past I've ever done that, I've had transmission failure. So I was a little hesitant to play with this, but I do like this car. You can see underneath it's nice and clean. I wanted to make it right and get rid of that check engine light. So what I did was I bought this Reman torque converter. I actually lost a whole bunch of video about putting the transmission in and actually changing the torque converter, but I dumped out as much of the old torque converter as I could and dumped it into a container and dumped it right into the new torque converter. I topped up the new one with as much fluid as I could and stuck it on the transmission and put the transmission back in. This is my first time doing an automatic transmission. I learned a few things. Number one being I lined up the transmission and put it into place using the bolts, and I didn't have the torque converter bolt holes lined up and ended up kind of binding up. I couldn't turn the engine over when I went to line up the torque converter holes, so next time I do an automatic transmission I'll know to line up those holes for the torque converter and bolt that up before you go and tighten the transmission. I was able to fix it by just loosening the transmission bell housing bolts and lining up the torque converter that way, and then after that the transmission went right on. So the video you've been watching here is just kind of fast motion of me buttoning things up, putting the transmission mounts on, hooking up the drive shaft, putting the exhaust up into place. So when I got this thing all done, I ran it and topped up the transmission oil. The torque converter job here, the transmission, I was able to pour in a little over, probably between dumping it in the torque converter and then adding fluid to top it up, it was probably around 2 quarts that I had to pour in to fill that torque converter and get it back to the level that it should be. So if you haven't seen it already, check out my previous video on removing the transmission, and my next video will be removing the intake to get to the starter. When I got this thing all together, the starter motor is rubbing on the ring gear a little bit, and it seems like it's an aftermarket starter. I'm not real happy with it, so I'm gonna replace the starter, and you can stay tuned and watch the video for that. Just hit the subscribe button and we'll see you soon.